Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of TNT. Today we're talking about buyer-specific fees associated with purchasing a property. These include everything from inspections all the way through to specific escrow fees. If you would like to go over the general escrow fees, and go watch this video, here's a link above for how much does it cost. And that will go over the general escrow fees that are associated for buyers and for sellers in the process of buying and selling a property. Let's dive right in on this episode of TNT. Okay, let's face it, size matters. Right? I know there's so many jokes in there, and it's important that we all laugh about it, but the truth of the matter is the size of the property that you're actually purchasing determines how much your fees are. Oddly enough, that's how it goes. But when we're specifically talking about inspections for the general inspection, the property inspection, when we talk about termite, all of these fees are associated with the size of the property. As the property gets bigger, or the more units that there are in the case of multifamily properties, then the more it costs. So let's dive right into this. Now, typically, your general inspection, this is a home inspector that comes out and just looks at the general condition of the property and reports on it in probably about a 20 to 30 page document. If you have a multifamily property, it's going to be more. But those typically cost anywhere from $375 all the way up to $1,000, depending on the inspector and who you use. Does price matter? I've had great inspectors that charge less, and I've had great inspectors that charge more. It's really a personal preference as to what you're wanting at that moment in time. Now, there are two more that I consider that are pretty major inspections that should be done every single time a property is bought, and that is the sewer line and septic systems test. Why? Because that's a major issue. I've uncovered major problems on properties and negotiated great benefits for my buyers because we did that inspection. In fact, one credit was as much as $30,000. That's a lot of money, especially in Los Angeles. If you have to go dig up a street because there is a point break underneath the street, it gets very expensive very fast. So you want to know these things. The other one used to be a seller provided service. This is no longer done. It was transferred to the buyers during the Great Recession. It is a termite inspection. Termite is a wood destroying pest. They also check for other wood destruction as well. They also check all of the shower pans and the plumbing associated that might lead to water leaks and wood damage in a home. It's a very important inspection. That one is not that expensive. The termite runs about $75 to $150, and typically if you use a company, they might give you some kind of credit towards any work that needs to be done. And as far as the sewer line, that can be as little as $250 all the way up to $350 has been the average. Now, are there others outside that range? Yes, absolutely. But that's been what my experience has been. Now, listen, all of these things start to add up, right? Because as we're going through the process, what we're dealing with is your general inspector is going to go through the property, and they're going to make notes on different things that are happening and what's working and what's not working. And the reality is that some things might not be in complete working condition. What do? Well, at that point, you have to go and do more inspections. I don't like to do all of my inspections at once, and listing agents poo-poo on that because it means they have to come back, it takes up their scheduled time. BS. There is no point in laying out cash that you don't need to lay out in the escrow process, in the inspection process that you don't need to. So, what are those? Well, that includes roof, chimney, foundation, geology, plumbing, electrician, mold, pool and spa, thermal enhancement. All of these can add up, and it adds up fast. And they are also expensive when you order an additional inspector and they don't provide any kind of a bid for the work that needs to be done. So, as a tip, make sure that you're getting somebody who's going to provide you a bid when they come out. That includes plumbers, roofers, chimney, foundation. All of them should be able to provide a bid to you for an estimate of repair. If they're not providing an estimate of repair, go get a general contractor. You need one. Especially when these bills, when you know it's going to be something that's actually quite expensive. So for a roofer in LA, somewhere between $300 and $400. For a chimney inspection with bid from a good company, probably about $275. Foundation, $350 to $450. They should give you a bid. Plumber and electricians, anywhere from $250 to $350 a piece, depending on the work and how much time they have and how busy they are. A mold inspector, this can be an add-on to your general inspection, depending on which inspector you use, or it can cost you more. So I would say if you're bringing out a separate mold inspector, budget $300 just in case. For pool and spa, some inspectors do provide this as an add-on service, some do not. It just depends. Inquire when you're talking to your general inspector. This also goes for another inspection, which is a fairly new inspection called thermal enhancement. That's when they take a camera and they actually camera certain areas to look for hot spots or non-performing wires or any kind of mold or wetness in the walls that may have been evident from a leak. Now, moving on out of general inspections and the inspections where we normally get bids. And I will do another video on what to look for in the inspection process and how to handle it. We'll do that in another video. This one is specifically just about the cost. So some of the costs that are typically paid for by the seller in escrow are HOA document fees and presenting HOA documents. NHD, that is a natural hazards disclosure report. That tells you in what areas is your property located in. Is it in a fault zone? Is it in a flood zone? A liquefaction zone? Any of these different zones that are relevant and important that are required by law for disclosure. They typically pay for that because it relieves them of liability by doing so. Also, any retrofit fees. Now, these are very specific. These are negotiable. These typically can be deferred to the buyer, so be aware that when you're going through a negotiation process, any retrofit fees that are associated with the property, especially when you're dealing with a corporate seller or a bank, they will typically not pay for it. They will fight you tooth and nail and they'll just go, we're not paying for it, or don't buy the property. And you're kind of left with the bag, having to buy this stuff. Or to pay for this stuff. Now, listen, multifamily properties on this retrofit number can get to be really high. But on average for a single family house, $300, $400 maybe. That's if you had to really do some work, like a seismic shutoff valve and water heater strap and bracing, smoke detectors. But on a multifamily, multiply that times 4. It can I've seen bills get up to $2,000 on that. So you need to be aware that depending on the type of property that you're buying, if there is a retrofit that's associated with it, make sure the retrofit is done right. And we'll talk more about that in another video under the inspections. I think I'll throw it in there. Now, moving on. The typical fees that are associated with escrow are still there. So you still have to pay your title fees, you still have to pay your escrow fees, you still have to pay your document preparation fees. And any other miscellaneous fees that are associated with an escrow. Another report that comes from the city, and when you're buying a property in the city of Los Angeles, is called a 9A report. This basically costs you $75. Typically the seller pays for it, but occasionally they'll defer to the buyer, especially when dealing with a corporate seller. And those fees, that basically just covers and tells you whether or not you're hooked up to a sewer line. Moving right along, listen. There's one thing that in the fees that buyers sometimes don't consider, and it is something that is a negotiation point. And what this is you can negotiate to pay for some of the seller's escrow costs. Let's say, for example, that you're a cash-heavy buyer, but you're really firm on the price that you're willing to pay. Well, if you're in a multiple offer situation, sometimes it might behoove you to offer to pay the seller's transfer taxes, or maybe to pay bring the property taxes up, or pay for their escrow fee, or their title fee, or something like that. Some kind of little number that you can throw out there, depending on the size and the price of the property, that actually allows you a competitive advantage in negotiation and keeps your cost basis down in the future. So, look, there are other reports and inspections that we'll go through in other videos, but for now, this is a good primer on the costs associated for the buyer and what they can expect when going through the escrow process and purchasing a home. Listen, this was a mouthful. It was a bullet ride through. I hope that I didn't shotgun it too much. If you have any questions, please reach out. I'm happy to answer them. And again, check out the next TNT.